Think about it logically. You're talking about security and faking voices or doing all this shit to hide passengers. Why not just put explosives in the garage and knock the buildings down that way?
We're not claimed to know all the answers. I mean, that's why we need.
But I'm not even saying you should know that. But I'm saying that's when you're looking at the government, the same bungling government that, like, you know, if they were trying to do this to invade Afghanistan or Iraq, Jesus, couldn't they have come up with a better reason than leaving Colin Powell hanging with that awful uranium thing? I mean, look at how fast that story fell apart. If they were brilliant enough to pull off 9/11.
Yeah, they're too incompetent to pull off 9/11.
How could they leave Colin Powell hanging with that shitty, awful... I mean, it was an embarrassment for the U.S. government.
Look, invading Iraq wasn't the only reason that this was probably done. The whole strategy of destabilizing the Middle East and...
Well, we didn't need to blow the buildings up.
Here, chipping away at our civil liberties in the United States. It's not just about one thing. The towers themselves were not profitable anymore. They were white elephants.
Well, that's another.
You know,
but dude,
when governments do things like this, it's a whole. You know,
but there's
a whole range.
You're
of
giving them a lot more credit than they're due. You're giving the United States government officials a lot more credit than they're due for pulling something off like this, my friend. It was our turn. They had planned this. We fucked up as a nation who should have seen it coming, and they got us. They got us. There's no government conspiracy
Andy, I
here.
would challenge you, sir, to read some of these books that are out there.
I have read books, not the one you mentioned, but I have done a lot of research on it.
Pearl Harbor, the ones that lay it out step by step, because you obviously haven't done the research.
No, I have. Don't just pawn me, sir. Don't pawn me off as being ignorant because I didn't read the books you're suggesting.
Why are you ridiculing people that are trying to do something?
Did I ridicule you? We're giving you a forum. We're giving you a forum.
Roy Rowe on your show. You said he had mommy complex.
Yes, I said that. Yes,
that kid was an ass.
Mommy complex.
Yes, I did say that.
Shame on you guys.
He's changed his opinion and facts. He's looked at pictures and changed them. He's changed the pictures. It said, oh, this has no plane equipment in it. And then when people have shown plane equipment, he changed his story.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the Pentagon. Pictures with that show equipment that came from an airplane where he says no plane crash. And then the picture shows airplane equipment, and then he changes his story.
Pieces and engines in there and stuff, you know, whatever.
But I've asked you basic questions,
whatever.
Dude, I've asked you basic questions.
Why do you guys ridicule?
I've asked you basic questions about questions about why would they do it that way, and you can't answer it.
Subject. You laugh about it, you joke about it, you ridicule it.
Dude, we're giving you a forum, and I'm asking you a very serious basic question. Listen to yourself. You're being the angry young man. This is what you're doing. You're being the angry young man. No one's yelling at you. I'm asking you real questions. A gatekeeper? Dude, that's childlike rhetoric. I'm asking you real questions.
You're not taking this seriously.
Oh, see, stop.
Doing the research.
Stop with the angry young man routine. That's the rebellion against mommy that I'm talking about.
I didn't read the book you suggested.
That's the rebellion against mommy that I'm talking about.
Take your damn sunglasses off.
Oh, look, you're right in your little bearded, angry face. Oh, don't be such an angry young man.
He's angry.
You're losing the argument, son. Son, you're losing the argument, and you don't like it.
I should be ashamed of myself, but not for this.
A lot more sense.
What is that? People calling their families saying that there was a terrorist had taken over the plane with, I mean, like, how do you explain that? I mean, that's a very basic question I'm asking, which is something the government could have avoided completely by just going through the garage. But when people are calling their families and they're saying, we're on this plane,
involved?
It's been taken over, how do you explain that?
Wasn't there a 0.008 chance of a success rate of a call at that altitude? Didn't they do the research on that?
You can't make calls at that altitude.
They were coming down. They weren't at 30,000 feet.
They were very low, my friend.
They weren't at 30,000 feet. They were 15 minutes into the flight.
Very low.
And when they were coming down, especially for the second flight, they weren't 30,000 feet in the air when that happened.
Tops of the buildings.
You're acting like they were flying over Mount Everest. They weren't.
You can't
make that statistic that you're asking. Okay, that's a clever thing that you want to talk about parroting something. Why are you not calling her out for parroting 0.008 chance of a statistic when I'm asking a very basic question, which is, I've seen family members interviewed that said, my husband called or my son called. What is your explanation that these people who had their son or their husband or their wife calling from the plane? You're throwing out a statistic. What is your explanation for how that happened?
Or a recorded message on a home telephone.
You don't think there's any chance whatsoever that those might have been faked? any chance whatsoever.
Faked phone calls from family. You're talking X-Files now, though.
We're talking about. I mean, I'm trying to look at you.
That's a little intricate.
You wonder why people don't take you seriously. The phone calls were all faked. So instead of going through the garages and fucking with a few video cameras, the government faked phone calls, and yet they couldn't make Colin Powell look good. But making that shit, we saw a trailer with uranium in it, and it wasn't. And the whole theory fell apart, and the U.S. government had to change why they were in Iraq and looked like assholes. So they couldn't figure that out, and yet, but they could fake phone calls and plant bombs in the Trade Center with no one seeing. You're giving the Keystone cops a tremendous amount of credit.
Yeah.